I'm Toastmaster Deepalika Kowar, Area Director, Area N3, and also serving as the Vice President Public Relations in TCS Nagpur Toastmasters Club. Being a master of one or a jack of all trades in today's world does not bring about success if you are unable to work as a part of the team. The importance of teamwork cannot be stressed enough. However, it's hard to get a group of individuals to work together smoothly. Don't you agree? Steve Jobs changed the whole pattern of living with his innovative and creative mind. However, without his team of hardworking professionals and their abilities, his innovations would not have reached the hands of so many people around the world. Beyond Toastmasters is a District 98 initiative where A speakers and leaders across the globe share their experiences of how Toastmasters have helped them in their professional and personal life. After 3 successful episodes, we are here in the episode 4 of Beyond Toastmasters to learn the dynamics of teamwork from a leader who is an expert in wisdom teamwork. Before we begin our session, let me set a few ground rules. I request everyone to please switch off your video all throughout the session for a better bandwidth. The chat option will be disabled throughout the session to avoid distraction to the speaker. However, you can send messages to the hosts and co-hosts. If you have any questions to the speaker, please send it privately to the moderator. Let me also share the mission of Toastmasters International, which states, we empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. The mission of District 98 states, we build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. Moving forward, I take this opportunity to introduce the moderator for today's session. He is a banker working with Standard Chartered Bank. Along with public speaking, he is passionate about running marathons and playing sports such as football and basketball. Being a Toastmaster for over 6 years, he has served the district in various capacities as the club extension chair, area director, and assistant division director, and has also served in club officer roles such as vice president membership, vice president education, and treasurer. Presently, he is serving as the Division M Director in District 98. With a lot of virtual applause, let's welcome distinguished Toastmaster Ankit Dasguphta.
Thank you, Toastmaster Deepalika, for such a wonderful introduction. Toastmasters of District 98, Toastmasters across the world watching us now and over Facebook, and all the future Toastmasters. Namaste. Today, I'm here to welcome a very special person. But before I welcome her, I would like to tell you a very interesting quote, which I had heard. And this quote is by Anthony Douglas Williams. The quote says, and the quote is, knowledge comes from learning. Wisdom comes from living. You may have been in conversations with a lot of people, and at some point of time, you may have come across at least one person in your life with whom after the conversation you would have thought, wow, that person has a lot of wisdom. Well, what if you combine wisdom with teamwork? Teamwork, as you know, is one of the examples of leadership. So why not, when we converge wisdom and teamwork, we have magic. And for the same, today we have a speaker who is going to talk about this topic, wisdom, teamwork. We are privileged to have with us the pundit of wisdom leadership. She is a personal excellence expert who helps people adapt to change in a positive and productive way. Her best-selling book, The Sooner You Laugh, The Faster You Heal, is a humorous book on how people create their own job dissatisfaction with absurd expectations about how the world ought to be. Her second book, 7 Secrets to Speaking So People Will Listen, is an inspiring and authoritative primer on communication and presentation skills. Our speaker is going to talk about wisdom leadership in which messages are universal, timeless, and gluten-free. The Wisdom Leadership Program helps leaders become wiser and organizations create better workplaces with better results. Our speaker is a distinguished Toastmaster and accredited speaker, and she is the former Chief Operating Officer of a $1.5 billion bank. And she's also a recovering politician. She has been married to the same engineer for 49 years. Together, they have raised 3 tax-paying adult children who have spawned 7 of the cutest grandchildren in the history of the universe. My dear Toastmasters, with a thunderous round of applause, please welcome our speaker for the day, distinguished Toastmaster Anne Barab. Anne, over to you. Anne, you're on mute.
All right, unmute myself. Okay, thank you very much. This is the beginning. We are going to have so much fun today. Here we go. All right, we're going to talk about wisdom leadership today. However, before we really dive deeply into that, let's just talk about, let me introduce a little bit about my Toastmasters journey. I've been in Toastmasters for 22 years. I just kind of wandered into a meeting one day because someone invited me. I really didn't think I needed anything to help me because I was already a presenter in my work, and I had, I'd talked to groups and taught classes, and, I thought I was God's gift to communication until I gave my icebreaker. I had, and there's an example, 43 ums and ahs in the space of 6 minutes, which is 7.2 ums and ahs per minute, which I really believe is an international indoor world record. I was humbled. I was embarrassed, but I was mainly made aware that I wasn't nearly as good a communicator as I thought I was. And isn't pride an amazing thing? Well, I decided to get to work, and it took me at least 2 years just to figure out what to do with these things hanging off the end of my wrists. You want to put them in your pockets, you want to fiddle with your hair, you want to clasp them and pray, but they just didn't work naturally. Time passed. Somebody turned to me at one meeting and said, you're pretty good. You ought to go to the National Speakers Association. Well, the National Speakers Association is the organization for professional speakers. And the difference between NSA and Toastmasters is that Toastmasters teaches you platform mechanics and gives you a wonderful place to practice your leadership and communication skills. NSA teaches you how to make a living at the business of speaking. They're very complementary and they do different things. So I set to work trying to become a professional speaker. I was 50 years old at the time, and I decided speaking professionally is what I want to do when I grow up. I mention that only to say that you can decide what you want to be when you grow up at any age. Time passed. I saw in the back of a manual something called accredited speaker, and I thought, hey, that's another hill to climb. So I applied. I was at that time an elected official. I served for 9 years on the board of a very large, very diverse school district, public school district in my community. Therefore, I was attending all kinds of community events and being asked to speak and all kinds of speaking opportunities, none for pay because that would have been perceived perhaps as politically not correct. However, I did have some paid engagements, enough to qualify for accredited speaker, outside of my hometown milieu. Well, the first time I sent in my tape for accredited speaker, you have to send in a recording. Now it's a video recording and you don't even have to send it in, you just post it. But you have to show that you're speaking in front of a large audience. And I was just so full of myself. I got way off track, didn't stick to the topic, and naturally I failed. The comments that I got back from the judges were, you need better organization. And I thought, they're right. That was, yes, I was able to string together a bunch of sentences, but I kind of got off track and ran down some rabbit holes and whatnot. The next year, I made sure in my speech that I had an opening, 3 points, and a good close with a call to action and a summary of the 3 points. This time I got through the first round of the competition. The second round is you actually give a presentation at a Toastmaster convention. I did. That day, that year, there were 2 accredited speaker candidates, myself, that had made it through the first part of the judging process. The second contestant had memorized his speech, and halfway through, he lost track. And there was this mind-numbing 20 seconds of silence while he tried to get himself back together. He did not make accredited speaker. The following year, he made it through the judging process again. And again, at the international convention, he froze and forgot. And it took another 20 seconds for him to pull himself back into place. The lesson I learned from his suffering was, don't memorize your speech. Write it out, sure enough, but internalize it so you're not parroting words. You're conveying ideas that you feel strongly about. Suggestion, memorize the first 3 sentences of your speech and memorize the last 3 sentences of your speech, and then just flow between those 2 endpoints. Let your own knowledge and wisdom guide you in the process. Since then, I have spoken. I've given training sessions at Toastmasters international conventions. I've spoken at least 7 times at international conventions. I've also done keynotes there. I've traveled into districts and attending conventions. In fact, in 2017, I visited District 43 in Delhi, India. We actually had the conference in Chandigarh, and that was exciting. And it's exciting to be with you all today because it takes so much less energy to just talk virtually than it does to get yourself halfway around the world. At any rate, enough about me. Let's talk about you. My intention for you today is that I will give you a new way to think about teamwork, some principles for you to apply. And the focus is on how good a team member you are. That's all you can do, is be the very best team member that you are. You can't control all the other team members. You can only control yourself. So I'm asking you to not be proud, as I was, but to be humble and to listen and to really question whether you are such a fabulous team member or not. And if you decide you're not, then how are you going to improve? In fact, I will have a call to action that says, what are you going to apply personally to your teamwork skills after this seminar is over? Let's get started. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Here we go. Let's do a few definitions right here to get started with. The first definition is wisdom. I love the introduction that cited wisdom, that it is living, and that is true. I have an 8-word description application of what wisdom is, and it is the consistent application of skillful thinking. When I put this up, I ask people what's the most important word, and frequently they think it's, consistent or skillful or thinking. But the core concept of life wisdom is application. Because you see, wonderful pieces of wisdom and mantras and great theologians and great people, from Aristotle and the Greeks through Confucius, through Buddhism, through Hinduism, through all religions, wisdom comes generally packaged in very simple, easy to read words. The hard part is applying it, is walking the talk, is living the wisdom. I stand before you today as a 73-year-old woman who has a lot of tire tracks up and down my back. And what I have learned since I first joined Toastmasters is to let go of pride and be more humble. That is life wisdom. Let's define our next term. What is a team? A team is nothing more than a group of people with a common goal. A group of people with a common goal sounds simple enough. The important word in this definition is people. People, in case you haven't noticed, can be very hard to work with. They're the main commodity, however, that make up teams. It's not objects, it's humanity. And humanity can be very hard to get along with. So let's look at teams that you may be part of. Here are some examples. First, your Toastmasters Club is a team. Are you doing your part to complete the education system? Are you volunteering to be a club officer or a district leader? All of these show that you're being a good team member in Toastmasters. There's another team, and that's your work. And I bet if you're in any kind of IT or technology related field, or medical, or human relations, or sales, or productivity, or production, you're part of a work team. And you may be on several different work teams. Are you a really good team member at work? There's another kind of team, sports, of course. We all think of, professional sports and sports that our kids are participating in. And maybe we're even, as adults, on some kind of recreational group effort, but these teams are easier to be on than a work team because you're mainly flexing your muscles and doing athletic things as opposed to trying to flex your brain and do brain and emotionally related things. Fourth team is family groups. Oh my goodness. Some of you may have huge families with all kinds of subgroups in them. There's the cousins group. There's the aunts and uncles group. There's the nuclear family group. There's the whole wad of the whole family with everybody, your parents, brothers and sisters, and maybe even their grandparents and also their great grandkids. And then there's the one most important team of all, and that is the marriage team. Now, I mentioned in my intro that I've been married 49 and a half years. We will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary in March of 2021, and that is beginning to sound old. I wish that I could tell you that I was a fantastic marriage team member. However, I only really began to cultivate good, healthy, productive marriage teamwork skills after I joined Toastmasters and got some of the pride knocked off of me. What I've learned in marriage is that it is the hardest teamwork experience of your life, the longest teamwork experience of your life, because you're supposed to be a team until you're, dead. And it is the most rewarding teamwork experience because if you do it right, your life will be full and rich and loved. My beloved and I, because of my Toastmaster experience, have adopted several habits consciously that have significantly improved our overall communication. So my point is, Toastmasters can change your life in all the different teams you participate. So now let's define what is a good team member.
And I'm sorry, just sorry for interrupting. Can you please make your presentation full screen? It's currently coming on half the screen.
Oh, the full screen?
Yeah.
All right. There it is.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Well. All right. What is the definition of a team member? A person belonging to a specific group of people. That's a team member. You're just part of a group. So, are you a good and productive member of your team? The fact of the matter is that the world is full of difficult people, and I am positive that there are some difficult people in your life. Now, a difficult person is defined as people with personality traits that make it difficult for you to communicate with them. So as you think, lean back and think about your difficult person, what is it that makes them so difficult for you? Well, let's see. Difficult team members and resilient team members have very specific characteristics. A difficult team member is generally negative. Almost everyone without question, everyone I have ever talked to about their difficult person in their life, the reason that person is difficult is because they are so stinking negative. You sit down at a big family dinner next to old aunt whatever, and she just goes on about how horrible things are and about how this isn't right and that isn't good and this stinks and her life is miserable and whatever else, and you are just exhausted by the negativity. Or you're in a business meeting, a project team meeting, and oh, what's his name goes on and on and on about people didn't do this and people didn't do that and that won't work and we already tried it and it wasn't any good and they shouldn't do it that way and this is awful, just negative. Let me give you a tip. People do not want to work with, for, or around negative people. And negative people as leaders are toxic, absolutely toxic. So what is the difference between a difficult member and a resilient member? A resilient member is positive. You see, a negative member spends all the time talking about the problems and how you can't get anything done. A resilient member, however, is looking for solutions, is able to listen to all the other members on the team and help pull the ideas together into some kind of positive solution. This is critical. Remember, your difficult team member never changes. They just seem to be stuck in negativity. A positive person, a positive team member, always seems to be evolving, always seems to be adapting, always seems to be, well, productive and coming up with possible solutions. What's another characteristic? Difficult team members are frequently very controlling. Now, I want to ask you to actually think, if you describe yourself as a control freak, what are the things in the world that you and you alone can control completely and absolutely without question? Can you control your children? No. Can you control your spouse? No. Can you control your parents? No. Can you control your team members? No. There's only 3 things you can control. By the way, you can also not control the weather or political situations or cultural things or pandemics. You just can't control anything except these 3 things. And those 3 things are your thinking, your attitude, and your actions. So it's the way your mind is thinking, the attitudes that thinking creates, and your behaviors. You're the only one that has complete control over these 3 things. That's it. So the reason your difficult person is kind of being controlling is because they've actually decided they can't control, and so they're just going to complain. In lieu of controlling, they're going to complain their life away. Whereas a resilient member adapts. I want you to think of your difficult person. Have they had a hard time dealing with the pandemic? I bet they have. However, for your resilient team members, have they been able to deal with it and say, oh, well, this is a new challenge. How are we going to deal with it? And frankly, I think we've all decided that when a pandemic strikes, you've got to be adaptable because it waits for no person. Difficult members tend to talk a lot. Now, I don't mean talking in the sense of communicating well. I mean just talking about what's on their mind. And what's on their mind is generally poisonous and toxic. Whereas a resilient team member listens, is a really good listener. There's several questions that have been submitted that we may see here in just a little while about how do you get people to do things on your team? How do you get them to take responsibility? And the answer is by listening very carefully to what it is they're saying. How do you be a good leader? you're a better listener than you are talker? How do you get people to follow you? By listening and caring about their point of view, respecting their point of view. So let's look at some of these characteristics. Negative versus positive. How do you take a negative mindset and move it toward a positive mindset? Well, here's a suggestion. Negative people have a pattern of starting out their thoughts with yes, but, which means they're going to find whatever was wrong about an idea or whatever was said or whatever was done or whatever is happening. And they're going to tell you what's wrong with that idea or that event or that circumstance. And they'll begin the sentence with yes, but we can't do that. We tried that before, or yes, but you know, the salespeople, they just don't ever follow directions. Or yes, but oh, Clem over there never takes responsibility for his work. Or yes, but that just won't work. No. Positive people say yes and. Yes, and that's interesting. Gee, let's try it. Or yes, and you know, that was a good, this part of your idea was really good. Here's the deal, folks. One of the major ways that my beloved and I fell back in love with each other, and we were at a point about 20 years ago when we could not even discuss what's for dinner without somebody getting into a snit. So we made a conscious decision, because I was teaching this and I've got to walk my talk, that we would both stop using the phrase yes, but, and we would replace it with the phrase yes, and. Because we were both just chock full of yes, but I don't like that. Yes, but you don't want that. Yes, but that won't work. It was hard. It is very hard to change, and this is where you have to apply wisdom. It's very hard to change from starting every sentence with yes, but, and turn it into yes, and. However, it will change your mind. It will change your attitude. It will change your actions and behaviors. It will change your life. And here's why. It rewires your brain. You see, we all as humans have a tendency to try to look for the, saber-toothed tiger in the bushes for survival. So we're looking for danger, and we're very good at finding danger in whatever the situation is. Yes, but is part of looking at the danger, pointing out the perceived danger. This does not help teams function well. Probably most of us are not in combat situations where there is serious danger at every single moment. Instead of having a yes, but mindset that picks out the little 5% of the situation danger, yes, and teaches your mind to look for the 50% good part of an idea that someone presents, or maybe even it's only 25% good. But starting to respond to a team member, and this is for leaders and team members, with yes, but that won't work because is a negative put down that stifles teamwork. Instead, responding with yes, and I really like the part in your idea about this specific part. It might only be a sub-idea within the larger idea of what they presented. But what yes and does is keep the lines of communication open and moving forward in a positive way. I highly recommend making a concerted effort to change linguistically from yes, but to yes, and will follow. And idea. Controlling versus adaptability. Boy, control is generated by fear, and it also disrespects the other team members. When you're trying to control them, you're in essence saying, I disrespect your ideas. Only my ideas are good. Yours are not. And you cripple the entire intellectual power or physical power of the team member. An adaptable, resilient team member is confident and trusts that the team together can come up with some pretty good ideas and pretty good solutions. A controlling, fearful, difficult person generally says it's my way or the highway. And this is exactly how you get to be a really bad leader. An adaptable, resilient, confident team member can come up with suggested solutions because they're not buried in the yes but world of that won't work. They're buried in the yes and world of how can we make this work? Talking versus listening. Many people perceive that being a leader is all about giving orders. And that just isn't in style anymore. That is a hierarchical way of looking at leadership. Do it my way because I'm the boss. I'm the biggest dog here in this pack. But a more empowered way of being a resilient and adaptable team member is that through listening, you can see other possibilities. You can see what others are suggesting, what others' intellectual capability is bringing to the table for solutions. Somebody who's talking makes a whole lot of assumptions. They assume the world is bad. They assume there's no solution. They assume nobody has any brain to be able to help. They assume the world is troubled and nothing can be done about it. They just assume ill intent of everybody in the universe. Whereas a listening team member or leader is seeking for understanding. What I learned in the marriage team, which I live in, is that I really was just dismissing a lot of what my beloved was saying because I really wasn't listening hard and I really wasn't trying to understand his point of view. And when I finally shut up talking and started really listening, I found out he had some really wonderful ideas. At least 75 to 90% of them were wonderful. And I needed to quit focusing on the 10% I disagreed with. What I have done at this point is to simply try to give you an overview. What I am endorsing is that you take a servant leadership posture in all your teams, looking for what does each team member need the most and can I help them get it? And I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and we can go to Q&A.
Thank you, Anne, for such a wonderful presentation and giving us words of wisdom. I'm sure all the participants here have benefited thoroughly with your talk. I'll start with a few questions that have already been asked by fellow Toastmasters. The first question is by Toastmaster Kujad, who says, what are the paradigm shifts that have been present in the leadership course from the start till now?
Okay, that is a brilliant question, and thank you very much for asking that. Here's the deal. The old paradigm of leadership was giving orders, and it comes from it comes from the male psyche. You see, male primates, and that means anything with opposable thumb and finger, so that includes monkeys and humans and gorillas and all of that. Male primates operate in a hierarchical environment, which is they establish who is the top dog, who's the alpha dog, and then everybody else down below. Therefore, this is the one that gives orders, that makes the decision, that runs all the other males away and gets the whole herd of women, if you will. And that's what leadership has been perceived as, is a pecking order. So the president of the company is the top dog, and the vice presidents are next tier down, and the assistant vice presidents, and then the managers, and then the supervisors, and then the worker bees. It's all in that kind of a hierarchical structure. What has changed in the last 20 to 30 years is a complete move away from hierarchical leadership to empowerment leadership. The only place that hierarchical leadership is still very much needed is in life and death professions, such as military, police, fire, where lives are at stake. And if somebody tells you to run into a burning building, you don't have time to say, well, but maybe if we went through the window this time, you know, I'm kind of having a bad day, and I don't, that doesn't work. But as more women have come into the workforce and brought with them the female primate mindset, which is power dead even. Women do not think in terms of hierarchy. They want everybody to be on a level playing field. And they have a kind of a complex way of doing this. This is a very large subject, but the bottom line is empowered leadership allows everyone to offer ideas. And that's the kind of teamwork that we are now talking about here in wisdom teamwork and wisdom leadership, is creating an environment of power dead even. This leaves the hierarchical folks scratching their heads and saying, why? I told them to do it. Why didn't they just do it? You know, salute and say, yes, sir. Because in corporate America and in families and in teams and in Toastmasters, it's not a paramilitary environment anymore. It's an empowered environment. That's the big paradigm shift. Next question.
Thank you, Anne. The next question that I have is from District Director Nitesh. The question is, how should a beginner approach teamwork? How to get away from the feeling of why I'm doing more than others in the team?
By changing your attitude from resentment over the amount of work you're doing to understanding what others are doing, and then figuring out if maybe there's a better way to make this happen. So if you perceive that your personal problem is you're doing all the work and nobody else is, then be a resilient team member. Think through how you can come up with a solution for this, which probably involves communicating your negative feelings to the person or persons in the group in a positive way so that the work can be more equally distributed. The problem is in your head. Yes, you may be doing more of the work, but your resentment is the thing that you've got to control. Next.
Thank you. Just coming back to your previous answer that you gave about the paradigm shift, just want to share that I had read recently about why is the leadership more towards a military aspect. If you see in organizations like its chief executive officer, headquarters, because that has been coming down from the army background. And as you rightly said, that is the paradigm shift that has happened. So thank you. The third question is from Rohit, who has said, how would you approach traditional team working in a virtual world as the current environment that we have?
I would say that one of the best things you can do in a virtual team is to be present and listening. What that means to me is that your video is on when you're in a working team, except when, you know, a great big one like this, no. But you are visible, you may be muted. Therefore, everything that you can communicate through your face and body language says to the person who is talking or who is responding, I'm listening hard. I am understanding. I am trying to hear what your point of view is. I am astonished in all of the hundreds of Zoom meetings that I've been in, how most people sit in front of their TV, in front of their screen, looking like this. Okay, is that an encouraging way to look? No. Does it say I am fully engaged in this meeting? No, it says I'm processing something else right now. So animating your face to say, yes, and I'm listening is the best way to be both a good leader and a good team member in a virtual environment.
Thank you, Anne. The next question is from Saiteja, who has asked, how to say no to superiors without disturbing team dynamics?
It goes with looking for the yes and in what the boss or the team leader has said. Find the part that you can agree with and use that as the beginning part of the discussion. It is quite possible that by doing that, you will be able to discuss the overall condition and perhaps frame the solution or the order that you've been given, the approach you've been given, to be more agreeable to you. I want to give you a quick example of listening. Serving on the school board is like there is no boss. Everybody is equal. So it's like a whole bunch of brothers and sisters trying to get along and agree on things. So naturally, it is absolutely fraught with horrible disagreements. When I first got on the board, my community and my board, the board I was working on, the community was wildly upset and about race issues, and the team was exceedingly dysfunctional. At some point, we finally began to get the dysfunctional people off the team and better people on the team. And it became a real teamwork experience. It was, in fact, the best teamwork experience I've ever had. But one time we were discussing a particular problem. I listened during the meeting to all the other team members. There were 7 members on our board. And I listened to everybody else and their point of view. I never said a word. I never said a yes, but. I never said a yes, and. And finally, they turned to me and said, what do you think? Because that's how we operated. What do you think? And I said, I've listened hard to all your points of view, and I'm still not convinced. So I would like for us to write the motion that we will vote on in the big public meeting in such a way that it's very clear that what I'm disagreeing with, the reason I'm going to vote no on this, is because of this point of view. Everybody leaned back. More discussion. And in the end, we ended up revising the whole concept that we were approaching to more closely mirror what my disagreement had been. I only submit that not to say, aren't I fantastic, but to say, by looking at the positive, you can see your way through the negativity to a better solution.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Like listening to you through your experience is really a wonderful experience. The next question has been asked by Toastmaster Ajay, who asks how to influence your team and how do you delegate the work in a very positive manner?
Well, I think we've already gone over this. You don't give orders. You listen, you solicit ideas, you stay very alert to resentments that might be going on in the team. For example, somebody feeling that they're doing more work than anybody else. You listen to the concerns that team members bring to you. Their concerns about not feeling respected or not feeling that everybody else is pulling the same level, pulling on the rope as hard as that person is. You listen, and you listen so deeply that the person feels heard. You may not still agree with them, but if you've really listened hard, you may discover, oh, I made a mistake. I do need to rectify this issue. 9 times out of 10, what I've found in bosses that I've been very frustrated with has been that I come and tell them what my concern is about a particular team member just being difficult, and the boss is too afraid of that difficult person to take action. Difficult people tend to be pretty argumentative, pretty difficult, and bosses need to have, if you're going to be a leader and have difficult members on the team, you've got to figure out how to deal with the difficult person instead of making all the rest of the team members pick up the slack because you're not brave enough to confront the difficult team member.
Thank you. The next question is by Toastmaster Neha, who's asked a question to you. What is that one mantra in your life which you use in most of the situations to overcome challenges?
Yes, and. When I'm looking for the and, I don't have time to be negative.
Okay, thank you. I think the last question that we have is by Toastmaster Deepali. It's more towards the teamwork, how to successfully lead a team with different skills and which lack cooperative spirit towards each other. How do you get rid of those challenges and make a successful team?
Well, one of the things that I have done as I work in corporations and with dysfunctional work teams is to pull people together and park a bucket on the conference table. And every time somebody starts a comment with yes, but, they have to throw some money into the bucket. Sometimes it's a nickel. All you're doing is tweaking your brain. It's kind of like an ah counter. Sometimes it's $5. Sometimes it's $20. Just depends on how wealthy the members are. I was working with one team and a guy was $175 in the butt bucket before he finally said, maybe I do start every sentence with yes, but. It's kind of like the ah counter. That's when you find out this is a really seriously ingrained habit in you. So I would suggest you pull the team together and set the ground rule that for this meeting, we are not going to use the word yes, but, and there will be fines. You can always have a party with the money or give it to charity or spread it back around. But the point is to get their attention that we are not going to be a yes, but organization. We are going to be a yes and organization.
Thank you, Distinguished Toastmaster Anne, for sharing your words of wisdom. And I'm sure all the participants here would have benefited immensely from the questions that you answered. Next, for giving the vote of thanks, I would like to call the District Public Relations Manager. She's a Toastmaster since August 2016. As much as she loves meeting new people, she enjoys having the me time and exploring new things. She loves listening to music and likes cooking, origami, and blog writing occasionally. She finds life between happiness of small things and fear of missing out. Professionally, she works as a content marketing manager with an NBFC. I would now call on the dais or on the virtual platform Toastmaster Aishwarya Vijay.
Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Ankit. Now, as Toastmasters, we attend several sessions. Some sessions last for 5 minutes. Some sessions last till the end of the night. And there are some sessions that leave the imprint on us for a really long time, leaving us contemplating, introspecting, and reflecting upon ourselves. And with a great pride, I say that your today's session, Anne, is one of those sessions which would certainly leave everyone thinking about in which category do they really fall and how do they need to change themselves to become a better, positive team player or leader. If at all they are in the category of negative, I mean, I personally have a lot of takeaway from it, and I speak on the behalf of other participants in the meeting that I'm sure even they must have learned a lot. I thank you for conducting this wonderful session from the bottom of my heart. Can we have a virtual round of applause for Anne once again, please? Okay, jazz hands, okay. So, with this, I would request Toastmaster Deepalika to help me with the role player certificate and acknowledgement certificate. So, yeah.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, the screen is visible. Thank you so much, Deepalika. Now, of course, Anne was the star of our meeting, and her wonderful talk did make our meeting a success. But there are a few people who stayed behind the screen and helped us in making this meeting indeed successful. So, with a huge round of virtual applause, please help me felicitate the design and public relations team members Cyril Thomas and Alba Mary from CKN Toastmasters Club and TCS Maitri Synergy Park Toastmasters Club respectively. Can we have their certificates on screen? Okay. The next, Cyril is here, and can we have Alpha also on spotlight, please? Yeah. So that's Alpha and Cyril for you. Now the next one is the girl who wrote wonderful content for this while we were publicizing this meeting, and with a huge round of virtual applause, let's give it up for Meghashri Kar from TCS Maitri Synergy Park Toastmasters Club. The next one, we have a team of Toastmasters who came together in Zooming the meeting and timing the meeting. So the Zoom master and timer team for today, we had Sapna Acharya from TCS Nagpur Toastmasters Club, Srinivas from TCS Maitri Synergy Park Toastmasters Club, Harshvardhan Sekarwar from Nagpur Toastmasters Club, Kirtiraj from Infoseps Toastmasters Club. Can we have a huge round of virtual applause for them as well? So with this, yeah, thank you so much, Deepalika, for sharing your screen. So with this, I would like to hand over the stage, the virtual stage, back to Toastmaster Deepalika. Thank you so much. She will end the meeting.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aishwarya. It was indeed a great experience to listen to all of you. I would now request the Zoom master to please take over and get a group picture for all of us.
Thank you, Deepalika. I request everyone to please switch on your video. Yes, there are still few people. Okay, so ready?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just like Anne, can we all have that jazz hands on our screen, in front of our camera, please?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Zoom Master. Thank you everyone who have joined us from District 98 as well as beyond the district and across the globe. We await you in the next episode of Beyond Toastmasters. Till then, please stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. I'm closing the meeting now.